sort of.
I would guess that we were at the base of the hill. Because it took us a long time to get there. I know it did. And the devastation and the mud and the gear, you can't imagine how many rifles and cartridge belts and boots and uniforms and backpacks and absolutely just strewn all over the place, you know. There was absolutely no vegetation. I remember trees or bushes or anything. But I do not ever remember climbing up the side of that hill.
Okay.
I don't think I ever got there. I think we were just being rained on by mortar shells.
Yeah.
And you didn't know where they were going to land. You couldn't hear them coming at you or anything else. They were just explosions. So we would go a little bit, and then we would drop in a hole for a minute and catch our breath, and then reload, and then, okay,
Yeah.
you tried to keep up with people. You know, some people will just take the first 10 steps, and they would get up and they would go 10 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would go 10 steps ahead of them, and pretty soon, why, if you were the last guy, you're not going to be the last guy. Man, you just get up and you catch up with somebody or go 10 steps beyond them, you know.
Huh.
And that's the way it kind of works. And somewhere in that leapfrogging line, you know, firefight,
Yeah.
a firefight, that means rifle fire.
Okay.
So every time you get up, why, man, you didn't know what you were even shooting at other than a hole in the ground up there on the side of the hill, where, but you just kind of moved ahead and dropped in a hole. And Barsness and Lockhart and I dropped in a hole, and whammo, the mortar shell landed right there in the same hole with us. So that was that. I do not remember.
Right.
And with these irregular hills kind of just popping up out of nowhere, so there wasn't any cover, no cover, other than the holes that were in the muck and the rain and so on.
Was Lockhart killed by that?
Well, his name was Porter Lockhart.
Oh, you mean look in the very end and see?
Yeah.
Okay.
When the shell went off between his legs, kind of in the ground, right there between his legs, why, the blast concussion just blew me wherever. But I remember looking at Lockhart just for a second, and there was a great big hole in his forehead.
Oh.
I mean, like big enough for you to stick your whole thumb into,
Huh.
you know, right in his forehead. And I don't know whether he ever made it or not.
That would be.
Because, boy, if he ever made it, why, I'll bet you he isn't right to this day with that hole in his head from a piece of shrapnel.
Yeah. Lockhart. Porter M.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, what?
He Purple Heart.
Oh, boy.
So he must have lived.
Oh,
through
boy.
it. Yeah.
Because
it's
his...
Lockhart. It's, L-O-C-H-A-R-D.
Lockhart, right. I would say L-O-C-H-H-A-R-D. Lockhart.
Yeah, they didn't have H in it, but... Yeah.
It sounded, you know, sounds as if there was two names. Anyhow, yes, he just had not only stomach wounds, leg wounds, you name it, but right through his forehead, right above his eye. It's a great
like
big hole.
Came through it. That's kind of, you know. He's
Let me tell you something about Lockhart.
Yeah.
On Guam, they were going to send him home because he passed out a couple times. I know it was Lockhart. He had a silver plate in his head.
Oh.
I mean, when he was a teenager or whatever, when he had bad trouble, and they took out part of his skull and put a plate in his head.
Wow.
And he told us about that. After concussion grenades came too close to him, and the blast would just get vibrations right into his head, more so than his head bone.
Yeah.
He called a silver plate. I know.
Wow.
That was Lockhart.
Huh.
And that he would literally be knocked unconscious temporarily by a close concussion grenade or something like that, you know. And Lockhart, he just passed out on occasion, momentarily, from the stunning blow, and that was Porter Lockhart.
What do I do when I...
I don't even know where Porter Lockhart came from. I was with him for a couple of years, but he was never a real close buddy or anything like that. But so I don't even know what state or anything else he was.
Yeah.
I know what he looked like. I know what he looked like right today.
Were you conscious?
Yes, I was, because they came and got Lockhart. And here's Barsness on that side, here's me on this side. And I can remember just plain not quite knowing what was going on, other than the fact that some guy grabbed me and asked me if I was hurt, and he just hauled me. I'm not sure whether I walked or just stumbled, but he just led me back that way. I ended up in a hospital. And punchy, and so they operated on me, if that's what you want to call it, for hemorrhoids. And they feed you some stuff that plugs you up, boy, it's like ground up corks.
Yeah.
With threads on them.
Yeah.
And so I spent about 8 or 9 days in a hospital waiting for me to be able to go potty again, and having a BM, and when I finally did, I whammo back on a truck. And
yeah, now evidently Barsness.
I don't know about Barsness.
Yeah, now you said at that time you didn't know, but he got back to the lines before
he got
did.
back before I did, and to my memory, he was killed before I got back up to the unit. Because I know that I never saw Barsness again.